Movie remakes tend to get a bad rap, as many feel they just exist, capitalize on something with name recognition, and don't come close to being as good as the original film. However, I've long stuck up for remakes, as it can be interesting to see another director put their own spin on a story. We don't get upset when plays are restaged, so what's the problem with a filmmaker taking a crack at a previously made movie? So I'm going to celebrate the art of remakes by counting down my top 10 favorites, and when possible, I'll also provide my thoughts on the movies they were inspired by. Now, it's important to mention there's a difference between a remake and an adaptation. If a movie is based on a book that has been adapted to the screen before, that does not make it a remake. However, there are some exceptions, a few of which are even on this list, and I'll explain why. With the introduction out of the way, here are my top 10 movie remakes. The Ring. So this is one of those exceptions. Gore Verbinski became interested in directing The Ring when DreamWorks sent him a video copy of the Japanese film Ringu. The story originated in a book by Koji Suzuki, but Verbinski stuck with the changes Hideo Nakata made in his film, including the lead protagonist being a divorced single mother of a young boy. Centering on a cursed videotape that kills viewers after 7 days, both movies are really effective and creepy. They serve as fascinating mysteries as we watch a journalist try to figure out the origin of the video and how to stop it from murdering people who come across it. Verbinski and screenwriter Aaron Kruger remained largely faithful to Ringu, but it never feels like you're watching a lesser production. They bring plenty of scares to the table, and Verbinski's fascination with water, a running theme through his filmography, is clearly evident in The Ring. Watching them nowadays, when the days of VHS have long passed, adds an extra eeriness to the story. Throw in one of the creepiest young girls in horror film history, including a memorable scene where she crawls out of a television set, and Ringu and The Ring still hold up as appropriate movies to watch at night under the covers. King Kong. Peter Jackson's favorite movie and biggest influence for getting into filmmaking is Marion C. Cooper and Ernest B. Schodak's iconic monster movie King Kong. He had long wanted to direct his own remake, mainly as an homage to what the original accomplished rather than as a way to top it. Jackson eventually got his chance after the success of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and I think he pulled it off. The original 1933 film has obviously earned its place as one of the most landmark Hollywood movies, especially in regards to its special effects. It works as an exciting adventure through a jungle, topping off with that famous scene atop the Empire State Building. With his remake, Jackson chose to extend the story to 3 hours, which some may view as overkill. And yes, I do agree with the criticism that we spent a little too much time on the boat heading to Skull Island. However, once we reach the island, and the eighth wonder of the world makes his entrance, the movie becomes a non-stop action ride, as we go from one amazing scene to the next. However, I also appreciate the character-building moments between Darrow and Kong. While Darrow was scared of Kong in the original, there's an element of sympathy here, and Jackson does a lovely job of showing that. I also love the decision to keep the setting in the 1930s, and we get a hilarious turn from Jack Black as desperate filmmaker Carl Denham. Jackson was able to bring his own flavor to a film that means an enormous amount to him. Cinderella. There's been a lot of griping about the current trend of Disney remakes, and I would agree that most just take the animated films and don't do much new and interesting with them, and a little of the magic gets lost. However, I think Kenneth Branagh's take on Cinderella stands above the other ones. I think the Disney classic is a lovely movie that injects the famous fairy tale with plenty of charm and heart and beautiful animation. For this live-action version, Branagh seemed intent on giving audiences something refreshingly old-fashioned. While the character names are utilized, as are Cinderella's mouse friends, the stepmother's naughty cat Lucifer, and the fairy godmother saying bibbidi-bobbidi-boo, the filmmakers also went off on their own, including enhancing the screen time between Cindy and the prince. It's a really heartwarming film with wonderful performances from the cast and a great message to have courage and be kind, becoming the Disney remake to top. Let Me In. This is another situation like The Ring, where a foreign film is given the English language treatment, and the main source is the movie more so than the original book. The producers even asked Thomas Alfredson, the director of Let the Right One In, if he wanted to direct the American version, and he turned it down, as he was not interested in making the same movie twice. While Matt Reeves did read John Ligfit's book, he uses a lot of the elements included in the Swedish film, and both the screenplay and book are credited. I think both Let the Right One In and Let Me In are really touching takes on the vampire mythos, with emphasis on the young boy who befriends a vampire. The snowy setting works in establishing the mood of the story, and the film is able to explore how he uses his new friend to overcome bullies at school. A major reason they work is due to the child leads. That friendship builds nicely over the course of the story. While very quiet films, Reeves and Alfredson were not afraid of creating some outlandish sequences, but they never feel tonally jarring. Let the Right One In and Let Me In complement each other really well and serve as unique entries in the subgenre of vampire movies. The Man Who Knew Too Much. This entry differs from the other films on this list because both the 1934 and 1956 films were directed by Alfred Hitchcock. Although what's interesting is that screenwriter John Michael Hayes was instructed not to watch the original film or read the screenplay. Instead, Hitchcock gave him a basic outline of the plot, and Hayes worked from that. The 1934 movie is a well-made and tightly paced thriller, showing the lengths two parents go to locate their kidnapped daughter, with a scene at Royal Albert Hall being the centerpiece. In the remake, James Stewart and Doris Day are great as the parents searching for their kidnapped son, and Hitchcock mounts some spectacular sequences, keeping the intrigue high. One clever device is the use of the song Que Sera Sera, written specifically for the movie. Hitchcock makes good use of the various locations, and even though it runs 45 minutes longer than the original, it does not feel like anything has been padded to extend the runtime. Both films are exciting thrillers from a master filmmaker, but with the remake of The Man Who Knew Too Much, he managed to take what he learned and perfected since 1934 to make something even better. Victor Victoria. This delightful musical comedy from Blake Edwards has a lot of fun with the concept of a woman disguising herself as a drag queen in 1930s Paris. The story originated in a 1933 German comedy titled Victor and Victoria, but I've not seen that one, as it's a tad difficult to track down nowadays. Although I am aware the company Kino Lorber has released it on Blu-ray. With Victor Victoria, Edwards created a clever screwball comedy that's even quite progressive for 1982. Julie Andrews is excellent as the titular nightclub performer in disguise, and it's humorous seeing her relationship with James Garner evolve. Also deserving of praise is Robert Preston as her best friend and confidant. Edwards mounts multiple funny scenes and the plot builds and builds. The music by Henry Mancini is fantastic, with the main number, La Jazz Hot, serving as the highlight. Victor Victoria is able to explore the idea of gender identity, but in a way that respects the characters. It's just a really smart and heartwarming screenplay, heightened by top-notch performances and great music. Cape Fear. While the story of a criminal who uses his knowledge of the law to take revenge on a lawyer originated in John D. MacDonald's book, The Executioners, Martin Scorsese instead used the 1962 film Cape Fear as the main influence for his movie. He incorporated Bernard Herrmann's score from the earlier film, brought in Gregory Peck, Robert Mitchum, and Martin Balsam to make cameo appearances, and ended the film with a confrontation on a houseboat. J. Lee Thompson's film works as an engaging thriller, with Mitchum portraying Max Cady as someone who gets under Sam Bowden's skin more through the words he says than with violence, although the climax is one that keeps us in suspense, as one doesn't know how he will strike. For Scorsese's version, Robert De Niro definitely went even larger with his performance, but he's no less frightening as he's not someone you would want to confront. Scorsese uses location and lighting to superb effect as we fear for Bowden and his family's safety. Nick Nolte is able to convey Bowden's fears and desperations as this criminal stalks him, and Juliette Lewis is especially good as his daughter. It's one of the director's finest films, brilliantly transporting the story to the early 90s with his signature style. To Be or Not to Be. Ernst Lubitsch's 1942 comedy about actors foiling a Nazi plot works as a hilarious mockery of those goose-stepping fascists, full of witty lines and sharp satire. Watching the film, it's clear how much of an influence it was on Mel Brooks when he was writing The Producers, so it makes sense that he would later produce and star in a remake directed by Alan Johnson, who, fittingly enough, choreographed the Springtime for Hitler number in The Producers. Both films work as humorous backstage farces, although the remake is able to be a bit more poignant since the filmmakers were more aware of the atrocities committed by the Nazis. Watching this troupe of actors fool and mess with the Nazis does bring a certain joy, with Charles Durning depicting the Colonel in the remake as especially buffoonish. Aided by smart scripts and perfect comic timing and pacing, there's a lot to laugh about in To Be or Not to Be, even when portraying a not-so-funny time. Some Like It Hot. This may surprise a lot of people, but yes, Billy Wilder's classic comedy about two musicians who hide from mobsters in an all-women band is a remake, and there's a funny story attached to that. Wilder wanted to remake a 1935 French film titled Fanfare of Love. However, he was not able to find a copy of the film or the script. Lucky for him, a German remake had been produced in 1951, and he worked off of that. So Some Like It Hot is technically a remake of a remake. Both the French and German movies are incredibly hard to locate though, so I've not seen either of them. In any case, Some Like It Hot holds up as hilarious comedy, elevated by Wilder and his co-writer ILL Diamond's brilliant screenplay and performances from the lead actors. The plot moves at a terrific pace, as we see Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis think on their feet, especially Curtis, who takes on multiple identities. Marilyn Monroe provides one of her most famous turns as the woman Curtis falls for. The hotel setting in Miami is also taken advantage of. I obviously don't know how it compares to the original, but Some Like It Hot more than stands up on its own merits. Before I reveal my number one, I want to mention a few remakes I considered for inclusion on this list. The Coen brothers' The Lady Killers, Brian De Palma's Scarface, James Cameron's True Lies, as well as two feature-length remakes of the director's short films, Tim Burton's Frankenweenie and Wes Anderson's Bottle Rocket. But my number one favorite movie remake is The Departed. Martin Scorsese's English-language remake of Andrew Lau and Alan Mak's Hong Kong action film Infernal Affairs did a tremendous job of depicting this cops and robbers tale. The original is certainly an engaging picture, managing to show how these dual mole operations spiral, and we see the effect it has on the leads. In his version, Scorsese heightened the Shakespearean themes and made one of his most entertaining movies. He really plays up the dual identities led by Leonardo DiCaprio and Matt Damon's characters, along with giving us a ruthless villain played by Jack Nicholson. I actually think this might be my favorite performance from DiCaprio, as he portrays the continuous stress he's under to keep up this role as a criminal while secretly informing the police. Through the film's entire 2.5 hours, Scorsese keeps things moving at an incredible pace, leading up to an explosive finale. The Departed actually ranks as one of my favorite films Scorsese has directed, and it's one I'm always happy to revisit. He was able to take another film from another country and bring his own identity to the story. Much like the other examples on this list, The Departed proves there is artistic value in a remake, and it does not have to be considered a dirty word among cinephiles. Now let me know in the comments what your favorite movie remakes are, and I'll see you next time.